Everyone is obsessed with boomers, millennials, Gen Z. The internet never stops arguing about who's struggling, who's thriving, who ruined the economy. But there's one generation that nobody is talking about. Quietly, efficiently, without asking for a single like or a single trophy, Generation X has been doing the work. And what nobody sees coming is that Gen X is not just surviving. They're built to outlast every other generation on this planet. I can prove it with real data. 7 reasons, starting right now. Gen X, the forgotten middle child, squeezed between the boomers and the millennials, always overlooked, always underestimated, always left to figure it out alone. And that is exactly why they're going to outlast everyone else. While every other generation waited to be noticed, Gen X was quietly building the world we all live in today. Stay until reason 7, because that one will genuinely shock you. Reason number 1. Forged in fire. Unsupervised. Here is a number that stopped me cold. 40% of Gen Xers were Latchkey kids. As children, they came home from school to an empty house. No parent waiting, no one asking about their day, just silence and a key around their neck. The divorce rate doubled between 1960 and 1980. Millions of mothers entered the workforce, and an entire generation of children was left to raise themselves. Researchers once called Gen X, quote, one of the least parented, least nurtured generations in American history. But here's what everyone misses. That was not a tragedy. That was training. They learned to cook their own meals, manage their own time, make real decisions before they were even teenagers. And Solston, a company that has psychologically assessed 3.4 billion people worldwide, found that Gen X scores at the very top for independence, self-control, and personal competence. Other generations were raised. Gen X was built. Reason number 2. Fluent in 2 worlds nobody else can navigate. Who's the most adaptable person in any room? It's the person who lived in 2 completely different worlds and mastered both. Gen X used encyclopedias and Google, wrote letters and emails, made mixtapes and Spotify playlists, balanced checkbooks and used digital banking. And they're the only generation on Earth truly fluent in both the analog past and the digital present. And that gives them something no other generation can fake: perspective, the ability to understand why technology works, not just that it exists. Research from the London School of Economics found Gen X professionals show superior comprehension of complex information, a direct result of decades of pre-digital training before screens took over everything. Gen X doesn't just use the digital world. They bridge it, they translate it, and that skill only gets more valuable as the world gets more complicated. Reason number 3. They never needed your validation. How many people do you know who cannot make a single decision without checking what everyone else thinks first? Gen X is not those people. Research shows 79% of Gen X employees feel underappreciated at work, and yet they still outperform their peers. They feel invisible, overlooked, like their work goes completely unnoticed, and they still show up every single day and get it done better than everyone else. In a world addicted to likes and external validation, Gen X was already operating without any of it, long before social media existed, long before anyone was counting engagement rates. They learned early, if you want something done right, you do it yourself, and you do not wait for applause. In 2025, that mindset is rare, and rare is powerful. Reason number 4. They survived everything the world threw at them. Listen to this list carefully. The AIDS epidemic, the dot-com collapse, September 11th, the 2008 Great Recession, COVID-19. 5 major crises, 1 generation. And here is the stat that made my jaw drop. Gen X is the only generation to have fully recovered every dollar of wealth lost in the 2008 financial crash. Their net worth fell 38%. 38% gone. Boomers only fell 26%, and many of them never fully recovered. but Gen X clawed back every single cent. A peer-reviewed study of nearly 900 people found Gen X significantly more resilient than Gen Z during the COVID-19 pandemic. What doesn't kill you doesn't just make you stronger. For Gen X, it makes you unbreakable. Reason number 5. Low drama, insane output. You want to know the most underrated professional skill in the world right now? Quiet execution. No complaints, no performance, no vision boards, no posting about your journey, just results. That is Gen X's entire operating system. While boomers built institutions and millennials disrupted them loudly, Gen X ran them, quietly, without making it a whole thing. Today, Gen X holds over 51% of all global leadership positions while representing just 17% of the global population. 17% of people, leading more than half of everything. In a culture where everyone is performing productivity, Gen X is one of the last generations actually practicing it. Reason number 6. They know how to disconnect, and it's saving them. This one is about mental health, and these numbers are alarming. Gen Z spends 3 hours and 18 minutes every single day on social media. Gen X, 1 hour and 53 minutes. 67% of Gen Z say social media has actively harmed their mental health. 67%. Gen X doesn't have that problem because they lived a full, real life before social media existed. Real friendships, real boredom, the kind that actually makes you creative, adventures that nobody posted, nobody liked, nobody documented. They just lived them. The generation that grew up without constant connection turned out to be the one best equipped to actually live with it. Reason number 7. Their greatest years are happening right now. Okay, this is the one I told you to stay for. Everyone talks about Gen Z as the future, and yes, their time is coming. But right now, today, in 2025, the generation running the global economy is Gen X. In 2025, Gen X is driving $15.2 trillion in global consumer spending. If Gen X were a country, they would be the second largest consumer economy on the entire planet, spending twice as much as China's entire consumer market. By 2035, that number hits $23 trillion. Gen X remains the highest spending generation on Earth until 2033. GenXWomen alone control half of all global consumer spending and influence 70 to 80% of all household purchasing decisions worldwide. But here's what's extraordinary. Gen X is only 44 to 59 years old right now. Peak earning years, peak wisdom, peak influence, peak everything. This is not a generation looking back at what they used to be. This is a generation at the absolute top of their game. Their best years are not behind them. They're happening right now. Gen X was called the forgotten generation, the slackers, the middle children nobody noticed. But look at what being forgotten actually produced. A generation that needs no one's approval to operate. A generation that survived every crisis the world threw at them. A generation that bridges the past and the future like no one else alive. Gen X didn't ask to be forgotten. And quietly, without a single fuss, they built a world that can no longer afford to ignore them. If you're Gen X, drop a comment. Tell me what you think is your generation's biggest strength. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.